Well, hey there. Come, come, come learn Blender with me. It's an awkward intro, isn't it? You know what? There's no chance that it was going to be anything other than awkward. How's it going? I'm Jeff, and I don't know Blender very well, but I'm going to learn it, come hell or high water, and you're going to watch me learn it, and you're going to learn too. Or maybe you already know it, and you're going to participate in the comments, and you're going to send me some notes about what I'm doing wrong and what I'm doing right. But either way, this is what we're going to build a very traditional 1x2 regular height Lego brick. And we're going to build this because it's kind of easy, kind of hard. You know, there's some simple shapes going on here. We've got a cube, a rectangular prism, I think, and we've got a couple cylinders. I'm actually not going to worry about the text for now. I think that that'll probably complicate the video too much. So imagine that we're going to, at the end of this video, we're going to have a 1x2 brick that is correct, the correct dimensions for a Lego brick, minus the Lego text and minus this little like artifact from the injection molding that they do. But anyway, here we go. Let's get started. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the interface. You probably either know it already or there's lots of videos that cover it. I am going to tell you a little bit about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. Also worth noting that I'm on a Mac. I'm going to tell you the Mac keyboard shortcuts that I'm using. I'm not going to share the Windows equivalents because I don't know them. But again, I think that information is probably out there and easy to find. So the first thing we're going to do is get rid of our default camera and our default light. These are the three objects that load into a new Blender scene. People usually delete all three. I'm not going to delete all three because, well, one of them is of use to us. This cube is going to make a great Lego brick. I can tell. I can see it in there. So let's get rid of the camera and the light. I'm just holding down the Shift key on my keyboard. Can you see my keyboard shortcuts? No, you can't. I thought I had that. Oh, I do. You know what? The Shift key doesn't show up. Delete these. I'm going to press S, no, X, and I'm going to click delete. And they are gone. So now we have our cube. The front of the cube. This is the front of the cube here. And I know this because if I press 1 on my keyboard, the negative y's are coming towards us. Y is this green axis, X is the red axis, and the blue one is the up and down. That's the Z axis. This is our width. Now, I should also show you, I've got a little cheat here. I found on the internet this PDF that shows me all of the accurate dimensions of a 2x4 Lego brick. This is compliments of Christoph Bartnek, who, for his own 3D project, needed the dimensions, put this PDF together, shared it with the world, and I am now going to pillage it and use it to my own needs. So, again, this is a 2x4. We're making a 1x2, but as you know, a lot of these dimensions are going to be relevant. The height here, this 9.6 millimeters, obviously is going to be right. And in fact, let's start with that. So let's come in here and we're going to set the height of our default cube to, what did I say, 9.6 millimeters. So there's a couple of ways to do this. I could use the S key and try and scale it. That's a really terrible way of doing it, I think, because I want maximum precision. So the easiest way to set the dimensions for an object in Blender with maximum precision is if I press N on the keyboard and open up this little dialog box here on the side. I have the usual location, rotation, and scale that show up all over the place, but I also have the actual hard dimensions. We already mentioned that Z is our up and down, so that is where I'm going to set the height. Now I could, this is in meters, I could say 0.0096. I could do that. What I'm going to do instead is just say 9.6 mm. And then it does the math for us. We're off to a good start. Now, let's grab our width. This is our width here along the X. And let's consult this again. 31.8. Yeah, actually, you know what? Let me show you. This is a great opportunity to show you a fun little trick that I learned. And then there's an asterisk next to it as well. The trick, an asterisk next to the trick, because I learned that there is a secret? No. When two Lego bricks are butted up against each other, and this is also on Christoph's website, when two bricks are butted up against each other, there's actually a 0.2 millimeter gap between them. So we need to make sure that we take that into consideration. So we're going to set the width of this to 31.8, the width being this x dimension, 31.8 millimeters. All right, so that is the width of, actually, you know what? Let's just go ahead for now, and we're going to make this the hard measurements of a 2x4, and then I'll show you what I was going to show you. 15.8 millimeters for the depth. And let's zoom way in. So I'm going to use the mouse wheel to zoom, and I'm going to shift and click the middle mouse wheel to pan over a little bit to get this centered in my display. So, beautiful thing is that actually looks very, very correct to me. That is a 2x4 brick. So we don't want a 2x4 brick, we want a 1x2 brick. Here is the aforementioned trick. So this width right now is 31.8 millimeters. I'm going to say 31.8 millimeters divided by 2. Yes, you can do math in here. And if I hit enter right now, it's going to make it almost the right width. I say almost. Remember earlier I mentioned the 0.2 millimeters between bricks? We have to take that into consideration. So we actually want 31.8 millimeters divided by 2 minus 0.1 millimeters. I don't know if I can do this or not. I can. Look at this. So now notice my new width is actually the same as the depth that I specified before. That means that we now actually have a 2x2 Lego brick. So we're going to do the same trick now on our depth to get the correct depth. And it is 15.8 millimeters divided by 2 minus 0.1 millimeters. And again, that's because that's half of the gap between two adjacent bricks. And there we go. We now have a finished Lego brick. No, it's not finished. It's not even close to finished. But we're on the way. So the next thing we need to do is, actually, let's look at our reference photo again. Reference photo. So here, let's see. We'll even rotate this so it's, there we go. Woo, wrong key. Shift. Why are you not? Why are you orbiting? Why are you ignoring my shift key? Is it because this is here? There we go. Yes, that's exactly what it was. Okay. So you can see we're off to the races here, but we have some studs that we need to add. So studs are cylinders, right? So back in Blender, I'm going to hit Shift A because I'm going to add a new mesh. We're going to add a new primitive type, and we're going to add a cylinder. And of course, our default cylinder is enormous. For now, let's just use that S command and scale it down so that we're not ridiculously oversized. Get it down so that we're in the right ballpark. Okay. Still too big, but we're in the right ballpark. Get it a little bit lower. And I'm going to press G. When we're going to move an object, we have it selected. We press G on our keyboard, and we can move it. And in this case, I'm just going to move it, and I'm going to press Z. So I press G to move, Z to lock to the Z axis. So now I can only move it on the Z axis, and I'm just going to move it up. So let's, for now, just make our first stud. So we need to know the diameter of this stud. And according to this diagram here, I have the diameter is 4.8. So that's edge to edge, 4.8. So using the same transform panel over here that I used on this object, I'm going to select our cylinder, and I'm just going to specify that it's either X or Y, doesn't matter which, is, actually I'm going to need to set them both. What did I say? 4.8 millimeters. Yeah, I'm going to need to set them both. 4.8 millimeters. Now I believe there's also a way to click and drag. Look at that. So if I wanted to set, so let's undo those changes. I'm going to click and drag. Now as I type 4.8 millimeters, I can change them both at the same time. Look at this, chock full of fun little tips in here. I know I said I don't know Blender. We're very quickly getting to the end of what I know. So this is very much going to be a let's learn together thing shortly. So the challenge now is how to, actually, I guess the next challenge is the height of that stud. The height of a stud right here, 1.8 millimeters. So let's do the same thing on our Z, 1.8 millimeters. So let's use our numeric keypad. I press the 1 key to lock me into this front orthographic view. So orthographic is great for doing things like positioning because I don't have to worry about depth. There's no depth perspective at all on orthographic. So when we're just aligning things, now I can kind of visually do this, and it's probably pretty close. Well, we're not going for pretty close. We're going for machine accurate. Pretend that we are making the model that is going to be shipped to the factory that is going to produce these bricks. And Lego, if Lego is our customer, they are not going to be happy with this unless they are completely spot on. So what are the things that we need to worry about? First of all, we need to worry about our vertical height. I don't want to visually G to move, Z to lock. I don't want to do this by eye. What I actually want to do is I want to lock that so that they are exactly on top of each other. And the easiest way that I know of to do that, again, not the de facto way, is to press G and Z. So I'm now moving this up and down. But I'm now going to press B. While I'm in the middle of a move, B will let me select any vertex. And let's just pick this one. So now I can pick this edge. And this, I guarantee you, is exactly lined up perfectly with the top of that rectangle. What's the best way to show you that? Well, let's go back into orthographic and let's turn on wireframe. And I'm going to zoom and pan and zoom. They are exactly lined up. So this is the beauty of snapping, right? So that is our Z direction position. Perfect. But now we have another challenge. And if I press 7 on my numeric keypad and we switch to the orthographic view from the top, there is no chance that this is in the right spot relative to the edge of this brick. So how are we going to do that? I'm trying to decide if I'm going to edit out all of the thinking. There's going to be a lot of thinking. Let me know in the comments. Where is that distance on here? It is right here. So there's 3.9 millimeters between the edge of the brick and the center of the stud. So we're not even measuring from the center of the stud or from the edge of the stud. That's interesting. So how do we do that? And I think the way that we do that is we want to snap the stud. Okay, I'm just going to press G and X for now. I'm going to approximate. I think we want to snap it so that the center of the stud is on the edge of the brick, the rectangular part. And then we move it 3.9 millimeters. So that's snapping. I know that we control snapping up here. So if I turn snapping on, and we want to snap to, I'm going to say the edge. So let's snap to edges. What happens if I try that? So let's do G and X. And no, that did not snap. Why did that not snap? Oh, I see. Oh, interesting. No, that is not what I want to do. No, that is not right. We want to snap base center, I think. Let's try that again. GX. Okay. Yes. So notice what's happening is now I'm snapping. I've done exactly what I wanted to do, which is I have positioned the center of my stud directly above the edge. So now, going back to my measurements here, 3.9 millimeters. We're getting close, folks. We're getting close. So the way I can do this move now is I can press G and X. Oh, you know what? Let's turn snapping off. G and X, and I'm going to move it. And now I can use my keyboard again. So I don't just have to use the keyboard to enter dimensions into that panel. I can just, while I'm doing my move, I can type 3.9 millimeters. No, I can't type 3.9 millimeters. We're all kinds of learning here. All right, now I'm going to have to specify it in meters. So G, X, and 0.0039. Bang. And there we go. Look at that. Let's pull up that reference photo again. Where are you, reference photo? And actually, let's turn shading mode on. Look at that. We got a long way to go yet, folks. All right. One stud. Now the other one should be pretty much the same thing. We're going to right click and duplicate objects. Shift D is the keyboard shortcut. The beautiful thing about Blender is it always reminds you what the keyboard shortcuts are. So even if you go to a menu or you go to do things the long way, it's going to remind you. So I could have also just pressed Shift D, and now I have a new copy. Now, right off the bat, I do not want this to just get dropped anywhere. So I'm going to hit Escape. It's still made my copy. In fact, if I look up here in my scene collection, we can see my cube, which is that. And then I can see my first cylinder, which is that one stud. And then I can see my second cylinder, which is the second stud. And I'm not going to worry about naming these because when we're all said and done, this is going to be one object. And it will only show up in the collection as a single mesh. So let's do the same. Oh, actually, we can probably do this a different way. I saw earlier that the studs are 8 millimeters apart, center to center. So if I just say G and X and 0.008, look at that. Look at that. So we have got the start of a very nice looking Lego brick. But long way to go. One of the problems is that this is solid on the bottom. So maybe we'll tackle that next. Looking at our reference photo, we can see that these edges are 1.2 millimeters. This is the edges of the brick that's not the hollow part, right? If you imagine that you've got this whole hollowed out section here, this little edge around the perimeter is 1.2. So let's go ahead and do that. So that means that we have to introduce something that we haven't talked about yet, which is edit mode. So right now we're in object mode and we are dealing with all of these different things as they are objects. But as you know in Blender, or as you may know, and if you don't know, you need to know, is that each one of these objects is actually comprised of a bunch of different parts. And it really is sort of the core of how 3D works. So if I switch to edit mode, now all of a sudden we can see all of those constituent parts. Now, fortunately, we're still dealing with a cube. So it's fairly straightforward, but this cube is made up of vertices, or vertices, as it were. Two vertices connect to make an edge. And you see these edges here. There's an edge, and there's an edge, and there's an edge. And then the most comprehensive of the constituent parts is a face. So we have edges, and we have faces, and we have vertices. And wouldn't you know it, there are 3 different selection modes up here in the upper left corner of the interface when I'm in edit mode that let me select vertices or select edges or select faces. What we need to do is we need to select this bottom face. So I'm going to make sure that I'm in face select mode. Oh, also important keyboard shortcut. When you're in edit mode, you can use 1, 2, and 3 on your keyboard, just your regular numbers across the top of the keyboard, 1, 2, and 3, to change between edge, vertex, and face. So we're in face mode, and we are going to use a command called inset. And inset is wonky. And I know why that happened. Notice my edge, the shapes that have been created are not even all the way around. Notice these ones are really wide and these ones are less wide. We're going to undo that. And the reason for that is I have not yet applied the scale that I made. So I took my 2 meter by 2 meter by 2 meter cube and I resized it in all 3 dimensions, and I resized it different amounts in all 3 dimensions. So what that means is that my scale is actually all messed up now. And if I have a look over here, make sure that I'm in object mode, but over in this sidebar, notice my scale says 0.008, 0.004, 0.005. What I actually want to do is I want those to all say 1 again. I want an even scale ratio of the X and the Y and the Zs. And the way I do that is just by, let's go back to object mode, and I'm going to hit Command A, and I want to apply scale. And all that means is that I want to reset the scale to 1 by 1 by 1. It's not going to change any of the dimensions. Notice it's now done. Notice over here in the sidebar, it now says 1, 1, 1, but my measurements didn't change. So that applying scale is very, very important. So now let's go back to edit mode. Shortcut for that, by the way, is just the tab key on your keyboard. Tab key takes me between object mode and edit mode. You do this a lot. So we want to be in edit mode, and we want to be in face select mode, and we want to select our face. And I'm now going to use inset again. So I on my keyboard, and I'm going to inset. So notice what it's doing right now. It's creating some new geometry for me. And it's basically just making a new loop. I shouldn't use the word loop because a loop is a thing that we're going to talk about later on. But that outer edge, that outer perimeter of my shape, right? Like there's 4 edges making up this face. It's just making a new copy of all 4 of those edges and then bringing them all inwards towards the center. Now, I've already forgotten what measurement is. Let's go back to this. That outer edge is 1.2 millimeters. So we are going to inset this by 0.0012. Oh, that's not right. 0.00012? Well, that doesn't seem right either. Inset 0.0012, 1.2 millimeters. Is that right? You know what? I guess that's right. Okay, ignore me. That's definitely right. Great. So now we need to make that hollow. So you might be inclined, actually for this purpose, let's turn on X-ray mode. You might be inclined to just use G and Z and move that up. And that's close, right? That's close to what we want to do, but that's not how Lego looks. We don't have a little flat edge along here anymore. Now we just have this weird, stabby, pointy thing. Why do we have that? Well, because that's what happens. That's what happens when you move a face. This face is connected to these other 4 faces. So when I move that face and those edges up, they're all going to adapt and morph with me. We don't just want to move that. What we want to do is we want to use another command that we haven't talked about yet, which is called extrude. And I'm going to press E on my keyboard to extrude this. Now I can extrude up or I can extrude down, but notice what it's doing now is it's now creating the necessary geometry to move this up. All right, now we haven't checked what our measurements need to be yet, so that's not quite right. But let's have a look at our measurements. How is this given to us? This is given to us, okay. The top of the hollow is 1 millimeter from the top outside edge of the brick. I don't know if you see that. Hopefully the resolution is good enough that you can make that out. But anyhow, what we want is we want this to be 1 millimeter from this. So the way I'm going to accomplish that is actually to just move it. Oh, so I can now use G. I can now use G to move because I now have the geometry that I want. I'm now just relocating the geometry. I'm not trying to create something that wasn't there. So I can now use J, G, and Z, and I can move this up, and I'm going to use that B trick again. Remember where I can press B and then snap on something? I'm going to snap on just this front edge, and I'm going to say snap to this. So what I've actually done now is I've put the inside of that hollow flush with the top. And the reason I've done that is because I now can go G, Z, and go down one. Oh, okay. I have to go negative. Watch this. So if I say 0.001, I'm going to be 1 millimeter the wrong direction. So I actually want to say negative 0.001. Okay. We're getting there. We're getting there. And I'm wondering if this video is getting too long. This video is getting too long, so we're going to make it a multi-part. So thank you for sticking with me for part 1 of how to model a 1x2 Lego brick. Watch for part 2 coming soon. And yeah, thanks again. Happy Blender.